All right, today we are diving deep into a story that pulls back the curtain on some of the most powerful people in the world. It's a truly tangled web of money, influence, and a horrifying secret that was protected at the highest levels for decades.
And to really get our heads around this, we're not going to start at the beginning. We're starting at the dark heart of the whole operation. A private island, a place that was sold as a paradise, but was actually built for something much, much more sinister.
So picture this. It's 1998, and the financier Jeffrey Epstein buys this island, Little St. James. I mean, on the surface, it's straight out of a movie. We're talking luxury villas, huge pools, perfect beaches, basically the ultimate playground for the global elite. But that beautiful facade was hiding a monstrous secret. You know, the people who lived on the nearby islands, they knew something was deeply wrong. They had their own name for it, a name that pointed directly to the trafficking and abuse of girls, some as young as 12, that was happening right behind those gates. And you have to ask, who was visiting this so-called paradise? Well, the guest list reads like a who's who of global power. We're talking royalty, world leaders, famous scientists, billionaires. The very people shaping our world were flying in and out of this place.
And you have to understand, this wasn't random. This was a cold, calculated system, a predatory pyramid scheme. They'd lure in a vulnerable girl, abuse her, and then pay her extra to bring in her friends. They turned victims into unwilling recruiters in this absolutely horrifying cycle.
But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. When this whole criminal enterprise was first brought to light, it was deliberately buried by the very system that was supposed to bring justice. So it all started with one incredibly brave 14-year-old girl who filed a complaint back in 2005, and that single report was like pulling a thread that unraveled the whole thing. Suddenly, police had identified 35 victims, and the FBI launched a massive investigation with dozens more girls ready to testify. And this quote from one of the victims, wow, it just lays bare the cold, calculated cruelty of it all. She explained that she'd been on the streets. She'd been abused before. She said, "I just let them know that I'm vulnerable, and I'm their perfect type." They were specifically targeting girls who had nowhere else to turn. So you've got 36 victims, a mountain of evidence, an FBI investigation, and what happens? The case gets shut down. A federal attorney named Alexandra Acosta arranged a secret plea deal. This deal was just unbelievable. It gave Epstein and his accomplices complete immunity from all federal charges. And the results? The punishment for running a trafficking ring with dozens of minors? Just 18 months. And get this, it wasn't even a real prison sentence. He had his own private wing in a county jail and got to leave for his office for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was a joke. So for years, that was it. The story just vanished. The powerful walked free, the victims were ignored. But one journalist just refused to let this injustice be forgotten. Her name is Julie K. Brown from the Miami Herald. She spent years, and I mean years, digging into this case, finding the victims who had been silenced, and uncovering the truth of that shady, secret deal. In 2018, her series Perversion of Justice dropped, and it was an absolute bombshell. It just blew the lid off the cover-up, sparked this massive public outrage, and the pressure was so intense that federal prosecutors in New York had no choice but to reopen the whole case. And so Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges. He was facing 45 years in prison. But then, just over a month later, he was found dead in his cell. The official story is suicide, but that, as you can imagine, kicked off a firestorm of conspiracy theories that are still going strong today. But Epstein's death, that wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. It actually threw the whole thing into the middle of a political hurricane, and one of his most famous associates got pulled right into the center of it. During his campaign, Donald Trump, who was a longtime associate of Epstein, actually promised his supporters he'd declassify all the Epstein files. But after he got into office, a complete 180. Suddenly, he was dismissing the whole thing as boring stuff and a hoax. So you have to wonder, right? Why the sudden change of heart? Well, when a small part of the files were finally released because of public pressure, they contained some pretty damaging allegations. We're talking about details of Trump's flights on Epstein's private plane, claims of constant phone calls, and even a direct accusation of abuse. And then there's this maybe one of the most bizarre and disturbing things found in the files. It's a letter, supposedly written by Epstein from jail. And in it, he makes this chilling comparison between his own love for young ladies and that of the man who was, at that time, the president.
But here's the kicker. As explosive as all these revelations are, all the documents that caused this political firestorm, they're just the tiniest fraction of the whole story. I mean, just look at this. We're talking about a few thousand files that have been partially released versus over 1 million documents that are still completely sealed, totally hidden from public view. The scale is just staggering. And even the documents we have seen are often impossible to read. They're just covered in thick black marker, redacting names, dates, entire paragraphs. Key information is being deliberately kept from us. And this gives us a terrifying little glimpse of what might be hiding under all that black ink. One email that wasn't fully redacted claims Trump knew about the abuse and even told Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand woman, to stop all this. It suggests powerful people knew what was going on and just looked the other way. How many more bombshells like that are being protected? And that leaves us with the biggest, most unsettling question of all. With over 1 million documents still locked away and a client list that's still a secret, the full truth is nowhere near being told. The real question isn't just about what happened, but who? Who are the powerful people still being protected right now?